The Pittsburgh Pirates have very little room for error. So when it seems the club might already be making some of the unforced variety, it's very frustrating for fans. And that's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Pirates your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Somehow, a problem we knew about all off-season, first base, became one of the team's last decisions of spring, and they had the answer the entire time. So the Pirates went out and got Spencer Horwitz to man first base. He got injured and will likely miss the first month, maybe more, as he recovers in AAA. The Pirates can't afford to give away games early in the season. This division is going to be likely very tight. I understand not wanting to plug a position for the long term when you hope you just acquired that in Horwitz. But at the same time, Spencer Horwitz isn't Freddie Freeman coming off the IL. It's Spencer Horwitz. So all spring long, the Pirates made a big deal that they weren't going to let Endy Rodriguez do anything but catch. I mean, I went with it. I figured it was just part of the injury recovery. Turns out it was them just not wanting to put anything extra on the kid's plate. Well, Endy has been a guy who has kind of shown a proclivity for being able to handle more on his plate. He spun multiple plates for most of his trip through the minor leagues. He can do a lot of different things. And health doesn't seem to be a concern. He's been flinging the ball all over the place from behind the dish. So I don't think there's any kind of issue with his health as far as playing first base. They let DJ Stewart take most of the reps, at least the most consistent starting reps at first base all off season. And they tinkered with Jack Sawinski, and they tinkered with Jared Triolo, and they tinkered with Adam Frazier, and they tinkered with Nick York and Billy Cook. And I mean, there were even rumors going into the offseason they were going to try Brian Reynolds over there before they suddenly changed their mind on that and acted like they were being attacked out of left field when somebody asked about it. They brought it up unsolicited last year that this was happening. Derek Shelton talked about it being an ongoing thing they've discussed for years. And then they show up to camp this year and people are like, okay, well, hey, Spencer's hurt. What about that Brian Reynolds thing? And they're like, what are you, crazy? I mean, to paraphrase, that's what they did. They basically shoved it back at you like you were insane for bringing it up. Next obvious question is, what about Endy Rodriguez? He's got a history of playing first base. No, we were told immediately, unequivocally, no. He's only going to catch. Anyone that's a fan of the Pirates knows saying Endy Rodriguez is only going to catch limited very much so the possibility that you could have he and Henry Davis on the same roster, at least right now. So we went with it again. Last day of spring, though, what did they do? Endy Rodriguez at first base, and they come out and announce that's their plan. They're going to let him play some first base as we get the season going here. They're not going to bring DJ Stewart. So all of that time was wasted with him. Another trial, by the way, at first base. This was a guy who hadn't played a lot of it. He had played the outfield. So he was learning the position. I thought he actually manned it pretty well. And he hit early in spring. I'm not saying that I wanted him to make it, but that's certainly what you led me to believe was going to be the first baseman. Again, I'm fine with Endy Rodriguez. My problem is more you brought in somebody who, let's be real, is a project. Spencer Horwitz. He could be your first baseman for the next 5 years. He could wind up being a platoon that can only really face right-handed pitching. He could be a guy that just never, ever has anywhere even approaching enough power to man the position competently. We don't know yet. That was a shot at a starter at first base. Endy Rodriguez is already here. So I can understand why you wouldn't want Endy to take over there and look super good, and then all of a sudden you've got Spencer Horwitz, and what do you do with him? But much like the pitching staff, like when you start looking at the starting options, you can have these same kind of conversations with guys like Bubba Chandler or Thomas Harrington, like we'll get into later on in the show. You can wonder where they're going to play, but that doesn't mean that you don't want them, and it certainly doesn't mean that you don't play them when the opportunity arises, just because you don't think it's the right opportunity or the right time for the opportunity. You have to play people there. What the Pirates have set up here is a situation where first base is going to be, at the very least, shaky ground. And probably for most of the season. Endy Rodriguez is going to start there. Jared Triolo is going to play there. I bet those are the two that get most of the playing time until Spencer Horwitz comes back. When Spencer does come back, what do you do with Endy now? Is he just going back to backup catcher? Is that going to be enough at bats for him? Do you still keep working him in at first base? Only now he only gets to play against left-handed pitching when he's there? And if so, isn't that kind of when you might want to... Isn't that kind of when you'd want to be sitting other guys? I mean, where Endy could play? I'm a little confused about what they're going to do here. And I don't like being this unsettled, especially at a position like if you claim this is a team that should be trying for 500 or the playoffs this year, you shouldn't have positions entering the season that are this much in the air. No, you can't control injuries. No, you can't replace everybody that gets hurt. You know, I understand all that. Just like Jared Jones is hurt, there's probably not a drop-in replacement for Jared Jones. There's options. There's guys who look okay, but there's not Jared Jones. Okay. Again, Spencer Horwitz is an untested commodity. What we're worried about as fans, I think, is getting a month or two into the season, and he's done all right. Let's say he's just done all right there. Horwitz comes back. Now I'm expecting Horwitz to do something, right? He's the starter. He's the guy we've been waiting for. The thing is, here's a guy who's coming back from injury, hasn't faced major league pitching since last year, didn't have a spring training, probably played about a month in AAA by the time he comes up here. And now you're going to plug him right in there and just expect him to, what? Take over first base unquestionably? And if you don't allow that, are you really giving him a fair shake? Are you really giving that trade a fair shake? And you traded a lot for Spencer Horwitz. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have made the trade, but you traded a lot for him. So you can't just not try him. You can't just go, well, Endy's so darn good. Forget it. Right? You can't do it. Unforced errors are something that a team like this cannot take. There's things they're going to do wrong, and there's going to be things they do wrong because they're forced into it from not spending money, from not having good trade chips, to being in the market they're in. That stuff's all things that I think most fans can forgive them for. What I don't think we can forgive them for is actively having an answer right there for you to fill a hole that an injury created, and you actively chose not to take advantage of it until the last day of spring. So now this kid, Endy Rodriguez, is going to show up in Miami And the second time that he puts a first baseman's mitt on this spring is going to be in a live Major League Baseball game. To me, that's derelict of duty. I don't appreciate it. When it comes to fueling your body, quality matters. That's why Just Ingredients is changing the game with clean, high quality products designed to support better health and peak performance. Just Ingredients offers an NSF certified line of protein powder, electrolytes, pre workout, and creatine, all rigorously tested to ensure that they're free from substances banned by major athletic organizations. Just Ingredients has also partnered with two-time MVP Bryce Harper, who trusts their NSF certified sports line to fuel his training and recovery. Whether you're recovering after a workout or need an energy boost, their grass-fed whey protein and pre-workout delivery give real results. Visit justingredients.us and use code LOCKEDONMLB for 20% off. And for more wellness tips, follow at Just Ingredients on Instagram. Did you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, or I guess eggs, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Gary Morgan with you here, and shameless plug time. I run a Pirates blog called Steel City Pirates, and really nice piece on there yesterday. I invite you to go check it out. And it's about the middle infield, written by Judd Verno, one of the contributors on my site. Man, we talk about unforced errors in segment one. Well, unforced errors is kind of going to be the theme of this entire episode. Stuck in the middle is the second segment here today. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is going to start at shortstop. We've known this all season too. All off season, we knew this was their intention. All off season, I and many, many others could not get it out of our heads that it might be a poor idea. His defense is not the greatest anymore at shortstop. His bat last year, first half in Toronto, pretty good. Second half, not so great. Bottom line is, for his career, IKF has been a bench player. And he probably is best suited to be a bench player. He's probably one heck of a bench player. Man, if you hearken back to the old Josh Harrison days, a guy that you could just bounce around wherever, he'll contribute, he's going to play smart, ready baseball wherever you put him, and he can contribute a little with the stick here and there. That's IKF. I don't have a problem with him as a baseball player. I love having him on my team. I just don't think IKF should be the starting anything. Not unless you have to. Perfect example is what you'd love to do is have somebody go down to injury and have IKF there to kind of hold down the fort for 15, 20 days until they come back off the IL. That's the type of player he is, a good enough bench player that he can fill in as a spot starter for you for a month or so if he has to. Pirates are going to go into the season with him as a starter. They're probably going to have Nick Gonzalez at second base, and it looks like they're going to split time between him and Adam Frazier at second base. That middle infield, to me, with pitching being the main focus of this ball club, is a mistake. That is an unforced error in my mind. To me, they have got to either focus on putting guys in those positions who can provide a little bit more offensively, or they need to be guys that are surefire lockdown defenders. You're going to get a lot of ground ball opportunities with a lot of these pitchers the way they are. That's the type of pitcher Bailey Falter is. That's the type of pitcher Paul Skeens is when he's not missing bats. That's the kind of pitcher that, well, we're kind of running out of guys now, aren't we? Mitch Keller, it kind of remains to be seen what kind of pitcher he's going to be this year. But they all are going to rely on decent defense behind them. The Pirates have left a lot of questions up the middle. Center field is really still an experiment. O'Neal Cruz is out there, and honestly, the Pirates have been pretty shy about letting him play out there a whole lot this spring. They've been very ginger with their use of him. Definitely sitting him a lot more than you'd like to see in spring, especially for a guy that's so crucial to breaking out this year. Really like to see his timing and in peak position. You'd like to see the defense really come together. After all, he only played there for about 15 games or so, like before the season ended. It's not like he's a seasoned center fielder. And he's playing with brand new people on his wings. He's got Brian Reynolds playing right field now, which, okay, it's not a big deal for Brian Reynolds playing a different corner. He's played center field too. Brian Reynolds understands the outfield, but that's not what it's about. It's about O'Neal Cruz understanding who's on his wing. And then you got somebody in left field, Tommy Pham, who openly has struggled with defense the last couple of years. Claims it's because he was playing out of position a little bit, a little too far back, a little too far in here and there. But Tommy Pham's that kind of player. He's always going to blame the coaching for like setting him up for failure. That's what he does. I honestly think that they've made another mistake here. Jack Sawinski is one of their better defenders. I'm actually hoping that it doesn't take him all that long to take that spot from Tommy Pham and kind of wind up starting a little bit more. And it looks like they're going to keep Ji-Hwan Bae. Again, Ji-Hwan Bae is fast, but he's not the cleanest defender out there. He and O'Neal Cruz in center field and left field might be a recipe for mid-air collision if we're not careful. So I have some questions about how the outfield's going to work. My biggest question, though, is that middle infield. I think you can get by with IKF and Gonzalez. But this team needs offense really bad. And they chose to keep a guy like Ji-Hwan Bae, who had a great spring. I have no argument that he earned a spot on this team. This is a team that doesn't have any right-handed bench bats now, except Jared Triolo. And it kind of looks like he's going to play a decent amount. So how much of a bench is he really? But you'd like to have somebody that could kind of bounce around and play a little bit outfield, a little bit infield, like a Nick York. You could move Nick Gonzalez to shortstop and IKF to the bench and start Nick York at second base. I think you might get a little more offense that way. Your lineup might look a little bit better. You give another young kid an opportunity. It's the type of thing that you'd like to see the team try to do. They're keeping baseline guys as opposed to potential guys. And I understand that, except your entire lineup is built like that. The entire lineup is built on potential at this point. That's a scary place to be when you're a team that your stars so far aren't really stars. Like Brian Hayes hasn't acted like a star, hasn't played like a star, hasn't been healthy like a star. Brian Reynolds has hit like one, but they keep bouncing him around defensively. They're moving him all over the outfield. O'Neal Cruz, I'm not sure he's arrived yet. I think we all see the potential, but you got this new position going on. he still looks like he's a little uncomfortable against lefties. He kind of cured that as the season went on last year. You kind of hope to see a little progression there. I'd like to see a little more offense focus when you're building the roster. We talked about Adam Frazier being a crazy signing all year, and it still doesn't make any sense. And I think it's prevented the team from having some cool options with some of these younger kids. I would have preferred them to see them go with like a Billy Cook or Nick York to get that kind of youth up on this team and maybe do something a little different with the lineup. I have questions about how they've constructed this thing from the get-go. It almost seems like in some ways like they've taken a step back. Moving O'Neal Cruz, I think, to center field, smart move long term. But they needed to have a better plan at shortstop, I think, than a stopgap like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. It's an issue. We're going to talk in the third segment about another unforced error, or at least one that I think could be. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. You never know who's going to win. Look how close Bobby Moe came the other night. I mean, if that didn't get you excited, I don't know what will. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. The last unforced errors of the day are potentially David Bednar and not starting the season with Thomas Harrington. It came out today that the Pirates decided Thomas Harrington is not going to make the opening day roster, and they're going to go with Carmen Mlodzinski as the fifth starter. I don't have a problem with Carmen Mlodzinski. The reliever being stretched back out to a starter. He was a starter as early as a year ago. He was a comp pick, but you could call him a first-round pick a couple years ago. So it's not like he doesn't have the pedigree. He certainly has the stuff. We just haven't seen him stretched out like this, and a lot of the reason that they moved him to the bullpen was because he couldn't stay healthy when he was stretched out. He really struggled both in college and the minors to kind of stay on the field when he was trying to stretch himself out. You moved him to reliever, and he stayed a little more healthy. So, and the stuff plays a little better when he's able to cut loose for a couple innings as opposed to trying to start and see how long he can go. Even so, I'm interested to see him. I'm hesitant to call that an unforced error quite yet. The main one I want to talk to is David Bednar. The Pirates did not go out and get themselves an alternative closer. They have some options internally, some guys that could turn into that. I'm not saying they're completely destitute, but they've only got one guy who is a certified closer. Okay. Justin Lawrence maybe qualifies. He closed a decent amount in Colorado. But even so, when you get waived from Colorado, even if you have potential and there's a lot to like about you, you're still a guy that got waived by Colorado. I'm sure there are people that have picked up Pirates cast-offs and made the same exact joke before. But David Bednar has really looked bad this spring, especially in the last few outings that he's had. He's just serving up batting practice. The high fastball that used to be deadly was painted like an inch or two above the strike zone at 97 miles an hour, and it had a lot of movement. Now his fastball's coming in around 94, 95, 96. It's actually varies a lot, which kind of speaks to poor mechanics most of the time whenever you see the fastball varying an awful lot. and the movement has just completely disappeared. And I'll be blunt, I can't even tell you he's 100% conquered the pitch tipping from last year. All I know now is when he throws that high fastball that used to be a guaranteed swing and miss or a flail or a pop-up or even just a miss hit, now it's getting hammered. And that speaks to something changing with the movement or something changing with what guys expect to see. David Bednar has always been a short pitch mix pitcher. He has the fastball, the four-seam fastball that he likes to ride up in the zone. He doesn't use it down in the zone nearly as often as you probably should. He's got a curveball. It's a big 12-6. He doesn't use it an awful lot. As long as he doesn't hang it, it's a really effective pitch. Kind of catches people off guard. And he's got a splitter. And the splitter, he tends to use down in the zone, tends to miss the zone. He's not trying to paint the bottom of the zone. He's trying to get a swing and miss. So the four-seam fastball is his bread and butter. If you have a 6 or 7 pitch at bat against David Bednar, you're going to see the four-seam fastball 3 or 4 times, minimum. So you're going to get your opportunities to take a hack at a pitch that just right now isn't doing anything and isn't all that impressive. Guys are geared up for 98, 99 now. You can't get away with 95, 96, especially if you're going to leave it in the meat of the top of the zone. That stuff's got to start getting to the point where it's chased again. And it isn't going to be chased because his other offerings aren't scaring anybody. I don't know what to say except relievers are volatile. The frustrating thing about David Bednar is he's a local guy, and I think a guy that most people had as a fixture on this team as they approached relevancy. But if David Bednar pitches like he did last year, he will do absolutely nothing but prevent them from getting anywhere they want to get to. I hope that the Pirates have a much shorter leash with him. I've been told they will. Derek Shelton has been reluctant to even name him as the closer. I can understand why. He doesn't look like a closer right now. In fact, there's probably 5 guys on this roster, 3 of which didn't even make the roster for opening day, that I think I would probably give a shot over David Bednar if I had all of the intangibles taken away, like the fact that Bednar's making almost $6 million. What he does can be effective. But if they're going to keep hammering him into the closer role, I think they need to understand it's not because he's got closer stuff. It's because they have sentimental feelings for a guy that was really good. Relievers don't always stay really good. Look at Craig Kimbrell. Look at how many times he's been really good, and then the next year he doesn't look like he even belongs in the league. That you can't count on this stuff. So you never go into a season with one, let alone one who just struggled mightily. You got to have a backup. Again, I talked about it in the first segment. It kind of feels like they've reverted a little bit here. They didn't take a step forward with the bullpen. Last year, they spent $10 million to bring in Aroldis Chapman. And Aroldis Chapman has his own warts. And he walks too many guys, and he, there's definite problems with Aroldis Chapman. But they needed that complement. And they needed that alternative whenever Bednar failed. In order to have a short leash with David Bednar, do you not need a nice soft landing spot to go along with it? I think you do. And I don't think they brought it in. Pirates are probably going to be better out of the bullpen, and the only reason I say that is because they have a lot more options. But the one thing that's going to hold them back is if they decide to be stubborn with David Bednar and let him cost them 5, 6, 7 games as the season plays out. I don't know that there'll be any way of looking at it as anything other than a fireable offense from multiple parties, including Ben Sherrington and David Bednar and and Derek Shelton. David Bednar is approaching his third and final year of arbitration in 2026, and I've been on record as not wanting him picked up this year. They didn't listen. Why would they? I'm just me. They better listen next year. Arbitration works a certain way. You're probably going to get a raise. I don't want to pay this guy more than $6 million to do the same thing next year. Hometown kid or not, David Bednar's got 2025 to prove he belongs here. Sentimentality's got to go away in favor of actually winning baseball games. As unnice as that sounds. That's all I got for you today. Really, guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you for making Locked On Pirates your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure you check out the NL Central preview on this channel. It was recorded last week, so I didn't have all the information, but neither did anybody else on the show. So we had a really good time talking about who might win this division. And really what we came away with is, holy crap, it could be really, really tight. It could be a really fun division, if not kind of underwhelming when it comes to total record. That's all I got for you guys. Stay locked.